Hey everyone, today we're doing another board game review, and we are taking a look at Dice Throne by Roxley Games. Dice Throne is a 2 to 6 player dice throwing brawler, where you are going to control a character, and you're going to roll dice, make combination attacks, and try to eliminate your opponent before they do the same to you. A lot of people have compared this game as a cross between Magic the Gathering and King of Tokyo. So what I'm going to do is take a look at the game, explain the rules, and then share my thoughts. Let's begin. So I have a 2-player setup here right now. And to begin, each player is going to have a character dashboard, a reference sheet, some dice, some dials, and a deck of cards. So when you begin, you're going to have your character dashboard, and this is going to show you the character you're playing. It'll show the abilities and attacks that they have, and it'll also show an ultimate attack down here. And this is basically their finisher. It is a hard to roll for attack, but it has a very powerful effect. You'll have some passive abilities, and then you'll have their defensive rolls as well. Each ability is going to show their name, the dice roll that you need to complete in order to perform it, and then the damage or effect that it'll do. The next thing is your reference sheet. So your character is going to have some abilities, and this reference sheet will just go over the name of the ability or effect and how it works. And you'll be using these tokens to keep track of them. The next thing is your dice. So you'll be rolling dice to perform certain combinations of numbers and symbols in order to perform attacks. So each symbol corresponds with a number of numbers. So these two are corresponding to 2 different numbers, whereas 5 and 6 only have 1 value and they're harder to roll for. These 2 dials are going to keep track of your combat points and your health. So combat points are spent in order to play cards and use certain effects in the game. The health dial is used to keep track of your health. When you go to 0 health, your character loses and your opponent wins the game. The last thing that you have is your deck of cards, all the way on this side. Your deck of cards will give you certain effects, and you'll be able to play these cards in order to upgrade your character and make them more powerful, or to give you some stronger one-time effects that you can play throughout the game. So the next thing I'm going to do is go over the gameplay and how it works. I have omitted a few bookkeeping rules, and that's just to make the explanation process a little bit easier. So when your turn begins, you are going to gain a combat point, and you're going to draw a card. So your combat tick will go up, and then you will draw an additional card. Normally, you start the game with a few cards already, so you might just be drawing 1 additional on top of your starting hand. The next step is your main phase. So in your main phase, you're going to have the opportunity to play some action cards before you attack. I haven't really explained what the action cards and other cards within your deck are, so I'll come back to that in a little bit though. The next part is the main component of the game, where you're going to be attacking your opponent. So you're going to get to roll your dice Yahtzee style, meaning you'll get 2 rerolls. So you'll be able to roll, keep the ones you like, and then roll the rest, and you can do that twice. Once you've completed these rolls, you're going to choose one of the attacks on your dashboard that you can perform based on the results of your dice. After selecting your attack, your opponent is going to have a chance to defend. So they're going to roll their defensive dice. So that character will be rolling this, and on their sheet, it's going to show the number of dice that they roll, as well as the effects that they're going to receive based on their results. The defensive rolls have a variety of effects such as dealing damage, preventing damage, and gaining resources. Once the defensive roll has been made, you apply the offensive and defensive rolls simultaneously. After you attack, you're going to have another main phase, and in this main phase you can once again play some more cards if you wish. After that, your turn will end, and this will go back and forth between you and your opponent until someone's health is brought to 0. So there are 2 additional things I'd like to show you, and the first thing is the character deck. So the character deck contains the cards that you can play to give your character additional abilities and effects. So I previously mentioned that you can play some cards during your main phase. I was referring to these. In order to play a card, you pay the combat point cost as indicated on the top left-hand side of the card. So there are 2 types of cards that can be played. You have upgrade cards and you have action cards. So the upgrade cards have an up arrow on them, and they are played during the main phase. So they'll give you stronger versions of your existing abilities. So as you can see, this is sort of Tithe 2, Divine Defense 3, and these can be played over your existing abilities. The next thing is you have the action cards. So the action cards are marked by a star here, and they provide a one-time effect. And there are 3 different types of action cards. So the blue ones can only be played during the main phase. The orange ones can only be played during the dice rolling phases, and the red ones can be played at any time during anyone's turn. So, in addition, you can also sell these cards for 1 combat point each. So that'll sort of help you pay for cards that you couldn't play when you have too many cards in hand. So the orange cards allow you to manipulate rolls and change certain dice rolls, and that's going to play a big part when you are fighting your opponent and trying to get that ultimate off. So your strong ultimate ability, you might come really close to it by rolling a lot of 6s. Playing these orange cards might help you get those last few 6s you need, whether by automatically setting something to whatever you want or giving you a chance to reroll. The thing is, your opponent is going to be trying to stop you as well. So you're going to see a lot of these orange tries going back and forth, and that really helps drive the tension of the game and getting really close to getting that ultimate you want to get off. There's going to be a lot of hand management and resource management as well, because you're limited in the number of combat points you have, so you're going to have to decide when you want to play certain cards, when you want to sell certain cards in order to get more combat points, and when do you think it might just be safe to just go all in and just spend all of it and play everything all at once. The second thing I want to talk about are the abilities mentioned in the reference sheet. This is a huge component of what makes a character so unique, but it's kind of hard to illustrate within the scope of a video. You have a variety of effects, such as dodging, dealing additional damage, stun effects, passive damage over time like poison, and they do a good job of representing the character class with these abilities. But to get a really good feel of the experience, you really have to try out the game just to see how well these thematic abilities are tied to their characters. So we've been enjoying Dice Throne. We really like the Yahtzee dice rolling mechanics, and we're big fans of King of Tokyo, so this is really right up our alley. And the characters all really do feel unique. You've got your aggressive characters, your elusive dodging, poke damage characters, and then you've got a few that are sort of combination where they're just doing attack and have defensive capabilities, and they really do feel unique. And even if some of the cards in the deck overlap with each other, that doesn't really take away from that. The other thing is that most of the games were really close and they were really tense. A lot of the times I just found myself going, well, if I just had one more turn, I could have turned this game around with a good roll and playing some of these cards, and that's something I really like. All the games are always down to the wire. The other thing that I liked were the ultimates. We rarely got them off because they're hard to do, and even when you line it up, your opponents can play action cards and affect it. But when we did get them off, they were fantastic, and they really do feel like ultimates. They're powerful, they turn the game around, and I really do like that they weren't showing up every game, because you really did feel rewarded when they were able to successfully go off. So we really enjoyed it, but I do want to talk about the new player experience. With my play group, every time we take out a game, it's always someone's first time playing it. So I tend to evaluate a game more closely based on that first player experience. So it's a little bit tricky for new players to get adjusted to this game for a few reasons. The first thing is that there are a lot of keywords. So you've got, accuracy, crit, stun, fire mastery. There's a lot of words that a new player is going to need to know and then figure out what it does. So they're going to be spending time looking at their dashboard and their reference cards, and then once you try to do something, they'll sort of be grabbing your reference card to double check it so that they can understand what that means. So it's a bit of a slower process, and that's okay, but it is something that you'll need to be aware of when you're teaching someone for the first time. The other thing is, because of the phases where you can play cards, and the number of phases and the variety of card types, there's going to be a lot of different interactions, and you'll find yourself checking the FAQ and going online and on the BGG FAQ to sort of double check if certain cards interact the same way that you think they do. And that'll sort of slow down the game process a little bit as well. But, once you get more games in and once you learn, that sort of disappears. But just sort of keep that in mind when you're bringing this out for game night, for someone's first try or something like that. But other than that, once we got a few games into it, we were relying on the guides a little bit less and less. It became very quick and, 20-minute sort of roughly games when we were doing the 1v1s, and we had a great experience. Speaking of 1v1s, though, I do want to make note that the game has a few modes as well. They have 2v2s, 3v3s, and free-for-alls. But we tried the 2v2. We liked it. We weren't as big of a fan of the multiplayer. It just felt like there was a lot of downtime, and people just really wanted it to be their turn so they could start planning out their actions and rolling their dice. So on a few occasions, we actually just had 4 of us doing 2 1v1s right beside each other because we really wanted our active turns as quickly as possible. And that's not a critique or anything. I know from what I understand, the game was designed primarily as a 1v1, and these game modes were offered because they could. It sort of required a few tweaks, but they could be accommodated. But really, the game was primarily focused for 1v1. So those are my thoughts on Dice Throne. I really like it. I do think that I'm looking forward to the Season 2 that'll be coming out soon. And before we go, though, we need to talk about this insert. So I'm just going to come right out and say it. This board game has the best insert out of any game that I own. On our channel, we take a look at a lot of custom inserts, and we talk about how they help with setup time and organization. They are completely unnecessary for this game. Those trays do everything that you need it to do. They hold unsleeved and sleeved cards, and they have a little tray at the bottom to hold all the tokens as well, and the dice on the sides. When you need to set up the game, you just give this to your friend, you give this to yourself, and you're all set. I'm not going to lie, when I first opened up the game, I was really excited when I saw these trays. Because we take a look at a lot of custom inserts on our channel, I can really come to appreciate these trays and the simplicity of them and how they really help with setting up the game and reducing the overhead during setup and cleanup. So if more companies could do this in the future, that would be fantastic. And just to clarify though, I do understand that this isn't applicable for every game, but when it is, they should really strive for this. So just to recap, this has been a review of Dice Throne by Roxley Games. If you do have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section, and I'll get to them as soon as I can. Thanks for watching.